In this video, we want to look at how we show responsibility with different types of flowcharts. For this, we have two new symbols. We have this first one here that we call a swim lane. A swim lane is going to contain all of the tasks that an employee is responsible for. If we have multiple swim lanes together, as we see down here, we call this a pool. So a pool can have multiple swim lanes. When we're drawing different types of business process flowcharts, for example, we're going to separate responsibility for different parties. The top lane here is going to be an external party, an individual that is outside of my company. Common examples of external parties include suppliers and customers. Down here in the yellow lanes, I'm going to have internal parties, which are typically going to be employees with different responsibilities. So let's look at an example of the interaction between a customer and employees at a pizza shop. Here my external party is going to be my customer, so I'm going to label the side here customer at the far left of the lane. Down in yellow I'm going to identify two employees. I'm going to have the salesperson and I'm going to have the cook who's going to prepare the pizza order. So in this process I'm going to start with a start symbol or a terminator. The customer is going to place an order. The order is going to come from the customer to the salesperson who's going to record the order. Once I've prepared the order, I'm going to send the order to the kitchen. So it comes down to the cook. The cook is going to prepare the order. Then they're going to bake the order. Then when they're finished, they're going to send it back to the salesperson to deliver the order. We send the pizza back to the customer, who then pays for it and enjoys the pizza. So we can see within this process what different tasks the customer is responsible for, what tasks the salesperson is responsible, and what tasks the cook is responsible for, using these swim lane activities. Let's look at an example of how we'd use swim lanes in a document flowchart. And in this case, we are going to illustrate sales. Here, instead of using horizontal lanes, I'm going to use vertical lanes to illustrate the same thing. So I have three people involved in the sales process. I have a salesperson, I have a credit clerk, and I have a warehouse clerk. So I'm going to identify the responsibility at the top of these swim lanes, and then we're going to go through a process of the documents related to the order. So I'm going to start with a terminator. My customer is going to send me an order that I'm going to record on a document. With this order, I'm going to send it over to the credit department to check the credit. So here we have a decision point. Has credit? If the answer is no, we send it back to the customer and reject the order. If yes, we are going to notify the salesperson that the order has been approved. At this point, the salesperson is going to input the data of that order, and they're going to store that in a sales table. When they're finished importing it, they still have this paper order with all the details from the customer. We're going to send that order detail over to the warehouse clerk, who's going to take that same order. They're going to manually pick the items from the warehouse. They're going to take those and they're going to pack them into a box. The result of this packing process is going to be that same sales order, but we're also going to have a new document called a packing slip. The packing slip is going to accompany the package back to the customer, and then the sales order slip is going to be filed away. So here we can see the responsibility of the salesperson. The salesperson receives the order, they input the order once it's been approved, and then they send it off to the warehouse clerk. The credit clerk is going to receive the sales order, determine whether the customer has credit, and then notify the salesperson if they do, or notify the customer if they don't. The warehouse clerk is going to take that sales order, pick, pack, and ship the goods to the customer, and generate a packing slip. Remember, we use a document flowchart to track a document from its cradle to its grave. So in this example, I can follow that sales order from its origination to when it ends. The sales order comes in here from the customer. It's going to go through a process where it's approved. It comes through if it's approved, and it's input into the process. So here's that sales order again. I'm going to track that sales order over to the warehouse clerk who receives it. It's going to go through a few processes, and I can observe that that sales order is filed away here. So the customer is my cradle, where the document originates or is born, and this file away is the grave, where it ends up. So if I ever want to look up a sales order, I can see exactly where in the process I would need to go to find that. This is why we use document flowcharts. Also, it would identify if there are any risks in that document being recorded improperly or being given to somebody who it shouldn't be given to. So there are numerous examples of these different types of flowcharts. Take a moment and pull up your internet browser and search for a document flowchart, a system flowchart, a program flowchart, a business process diagram, and a data flow diagram to see some different examples of what this looks like in real life. From here, we're going to move over to the lab where you'll now have a chance to practice this and actually build a flowchart or two.